You know that feeling when you can't quite make out what you're looking at? When the words on a page start to blur together, or when you have to squint just to recognize a familiar face. That was my life 3 years ago. I'm Margaret, and at 67, I found myself unable to read my favorite books, recognize my grandchildren in photographs, or even drive to the grocery store without anxiety. The blurry spot in the center of my vision was stealing my independence piece by piece. My doctor called it age-related macular degeneration, and the prognosis wasn't good. It's just part of getting older, he said. But I refused to accept that my eyesight and my independence were simply slipping away as some inevitable part of aging. I still remember the day everything changed. I was babysitting my youngest granddaughter, Emma. She was only 4 at the time. We were coloring together when she asked me why I kept coloring outside the lines. I laughed it off, saying my eyes weren't as good as they used to be. But when she handed me her drawing to look at, I couldn't make out the details she was so proudly pointing to. The central part of my vision, right where I needed to focus, was distorted and blurry. That night after Emma went home, I sat in my living room and cried. Not because I couldn't color properly, but because I suddenly realized how much I had been compensating for my failing vision. I couldn't see my granddaughter's artwork. I couldn't read recipes anymore without a magnifying glass. I had stopped driving at night months ago. My world was literally shrinking before my eyes. The next morning, I made an appointment with an ophthalmologist. After a thorough examination, he confirmed what I feared: age-related macular degeneration, or AMD. The central part of my retina was deteriorating. He explained that there are 2 types, dry and wet. Mine was the dry form, which develops more slowly but still progressively worsens. When he told me there was no medical cure, my heart sank. "So that's it?" I asked him. "I just wait until I can't see anymore." His answer changed everything. "Well, there's no medical cure, Margaret, but there's growing evidence that nutrition plays a crucial role in eye health. Particularly for AMD patients. I've always been somewhat health conscious, but I'd never given much thought to eating specifically for my eyes." The doctor explained that certain nutrients appear to slow the progression of AMD and even improve vision in some cases. He mentioned antioxidants, omega-3 fatty acids, lutein, zeaxanthin, words that would soon become part of my everyday vocabulary. I went home with a stack of research papers and a determination to learn everything I could about vision-boosting foods. I spent days researching, reading scientific studies about the connection between nutrition and eye health. I learned that the macula, the part of my eye that was deteriorating, actually contains high concentrations of specific nutrients, the same ones my doctor had mentioned. One study particularly caught my attention, the Age-Related Eye Disease Study, or AREDS. This major clinical trial found that a specific combination of vitamins and minerals could reduce the risk of advanced AMD by about 25%. This wasn't just some internet remedy, this was real science. But I wanted to go beyond supplements. I wanted to remake my diet entirely around foods that would nourish my eyes. I started making lists of vision-supporting superfoods and planning how to incorporate them into my daily meals. For the first time since my diagnosis, I felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe I wasn't powerless after all. I decided to approach this methodically, like a research project. First, I identified the key nutrients my eyes needed most. Lutein and zeaxanthin, these carotenoids act like natural sunglasses, filtering harmful blue light and protecting the macula. Omega-3 fatty acids, these reduce inflammation and appear to play a role in retinal health. Vitamin C, vitamin E, zinc, and copper, the core components of those AREDS supplements, all with antioxidant properties that protect cells from damage. Vitamin A, essential for sight, especially night vision. Then I created what I jokingly called my vision prescription, a list of foods rich in these nutrients that I would incorporate into my meals every day. Dark leafy greens became my new best friends. Kale, spinach, collard greens, all packed with lutein and zeaxanthin. I started having a large salad every day for lunch and adding greens to my morning smoothies. Colorful fruits and vegetables joined the rotation: orange bell peppers, corn, orange juice, and carrots for their carotenoids. Fatty fish like salmon, sardines, and mackerel for omega-3s became a twice-weekly dinner. Nuts and seeds, particularly walnuts and flax seeds, made perfect snacks and salad toppings. Eggs with their lutein-rich yolks became my breakfast of choice. And I couldn't forget berries, blueberries, blackberries, and strawberries for their antioxidant properties. My refrigerator transformed from a collection of convenience foods to a rainbow of fresh produce. My pantry filled with nuts, seeds, and healthy oils. I joke now that my kitchen looked like I was feeding a rabbit, not a grandmother with vision problems. Now I want to be honest with you. This wasn't an easy transition. For someone who grew up in the Midwest on meat and potatoes, suddenly eating kale smoothies and salmon 3 times a week was, well, let's just say it was an adjustment. The first few weeks were hard. I missed my comfort foods. I struggled with preparing all these fresh ingredients. I spent more money at the grocery store than I was used to. There were days I wanted to give up and go back to my old eating habits. But then I'd think about Emma and how I wanted to see her grow up. I wanted to read books to her without struggling, to watch her school plays without missing the details, to eventually teach her to drive when she was old enough. And that kept me going. I also had to navigate eating out, family gatherings, and holidays. I learned to scan menus for fish options and salads. I started bringing my own dishes to family. Potlucks. I politely explained to well-meaning relatives that yes, I really did prefer the spinach salad to the mac and cheese. Thank you very much. My daughter-in-law was my biggest supporter. She started researching recipes that were both delicious and healthy. She'd text me photos of grocery store finds. Mom, they have fresh wild salmon on sale. Or, I found this amazing cookbook with macular degeneration recipes. Her enthusiasm helped keep me motivated when my own was flagging. About 2 months into my new eating routine, I noticed something unexpected. Yes, I was focusing on my eyes, but other aspects of my health were improving too. The aches in my joints seemed less severe. I had more energy throughout the day. I was sleeping better at night. Even my skin seemed clearer. My primary care doctor was impressed at my next checkup. My blood pressure had dropped to normal ranges. My cholesterol levels had improved. I'd lost 12 pounds without even trying. Whatever you're doing, keep it up, he told me. Your eyes might have been the motivation, but your whole body is benefiting. This made perfect sense, of course. The same inflammation and oxidative stress that damages eyes also affects the rest of the body. Nutrients supporting my vision were also supporting my heart, brain, and joints. I started to see my macular degeneration diagnosis not as a curse, but as a wake-up call, one that potentially added healthy years to my life. Without it, I might have continued my old eating habits indefinitely, never discovering how much better I could feel. And the benefits weren't just physical. There was something empowering about taking control of my health, instead of just accepting decline as inevitable. Each meal became an act of self-care, a choice to fight for my vision and my independence. That psychological boost was almost as valuable as the nutritional benefits. About 4 months into my new eating plan, I had a follow-up appointment with my ophthalmologist. I hadn't noticed dramatic changes in my vision yet, but I was hopeful the progression had at least slowed down. The doctor performed the same tests as before, examining my retinas and measuring my visual acuity. When he finished, he looked at his notes, then at me with a slightly puzzled expression. "Well, Margaret, this is interesting," he said. "The dry AMD is still there, of course. We can't reverse the damage that's already occurred. But the progression has not just slowed, it appears to have stabilized completely since your last visit." My heart leapt. Stabilized. That was more than I dared hope for. And your visual acuity has improved slightly, he continued. Not dramatically, but measurably. Whatever you're doing, it seems to be working. I told him about my nutrition research, the specific foods I'd been eating, my daily routine of leafy greens and colorful vegetables. He nodded approvingly. The science supports what you're doing, he said. Keep it up. I want to see you again in 6 months, sooner if you notice any changes. I practically floated out of his office that day. For the first time since my diagnosis, I felt real hope, not just wishful thinking, but hope backed by measurable results. My vision hadn't magically returned to what it was in my youth, but the decline had stopped. And that felt like a miracle. That evening, I called my son and daughter-in-law to share the good news. We celebrated with a family dinner that weekend, salmon with spinach salad, of course, and a dessert of mixed berries. Even my grandkids joined in the celebration, though I suspect they were less excited about the spinach than the berries. With this positive reinforcement, I became even more dedicated to my healthy eating plans. I started fine-tuning my approach, looking for ways to maximize the benefits and make the diet sustainable for the long term. I began tracking how different foods affected how I felt. I noticed that on days when I ate fatty fish, my eyes seemed to feel less strained by evening. When I skimped on my greens for a few days, I could tell the difference in my visual clarity. I experimented with different cooking methods to make healthy foods more appealing. Roasted kale chips instead of raw kale. Smoothies that disguise the taste of spinach with berries and a touch of honey. Salmon cakes that my grandkids actually requested when they visited. I invested in some tools that made healthy cooking easier. A good blender for smoothies, proper storage containers to keep produce fresh longer, high-quality olive oil that made simple dishes taste luxurious. I also learned to supplement wisely. While I focused on getting nutrients from whole foods, my doctor recommended an AREDS2 formula supplement specifically designed for macular degeneration. The combination of dietary changes and targeted supplementation seemed to work better than either approach alone. And I discovered the importance of other lifestyle factors. Regular exercise improved my circulation, which benefits eye health. Wearing sunglasses protected my eyes from harmful UV rays. Even getting adequate sleep seemed to affect how well my eyes functioned during the day. Each small adjustment made my routine a little more effective and a little more sustainable. I wasn't just following a temporary diet, I was creating a new lifestyle. A year after my diagnosis and the start of my nutrition journey, I had another comprehensive eye exam. This would be the real test, had the improvements continued or had they been a temporary fluke. I tried not to get my hopes up too high as the doctor conducted his examination. When he finished, he pulled up my records on his computer, comparing images of my retinas from my first visit to today. "Margaret," he said, turning to me with a smile, "this is remarkable. Not only has the AMD not progressed, but the drusen, those yellow deposits under your retina, have actually decreased somewhat in size and number." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Is that possible?" I asked. "It's uncommon," he admitted, "but not unheard of. The body has remarkable healing capacity when given the right tools. And it appears your nutritional approach is providing those tools." He showed me the images side by side, pointing out the differences. Even to my untrained eye, I could see the improvement. The test of my visual acuity confirmed what I'd been noticing in daily life. My vision had actually improved slightly from my last visit. "I've been practicing ophthalmology for 28 years, he told me, and I've rarely seen AMD stabilize so effectively, let alone show improvement, especially without medical intervention. Would you mind if I documented your case for my colleagues?" I agreed immediately. If my experience could help others with AMD, I wanted to share it. As I left his office that day, I felt a deep sense of gratitude and vindication. The countless salads, the salmon dinners, the berry smoothies, they had all been worth it. I wasn't just slowing the decline, I was actually reclaiming some of what I'd lost. That night, I pulled out a novel I hadn't been able to read without significant magnification. I still needed my reading glasses, of course. Nutrition can't reverse normal aging. But the blurry spot that had made reading so difficult was noticeably reduced. I read 3 chapters before bed, tears of joy occasionally blurring the words more than my AMD ever. Good. As word of my improvement spread among family and friends, people started asking for advice. My bridge club, my church group, even my hairdresser wanted to know my secret. It's not really a secret, I'd tell them. It's just food. The right foods in the right amounts consistently over time. I started compiling my recipes and research into a binder, making copies for friends who expressed interest. I created a simple 1-page handout with the top vision-boosting foods and why they worked. Nothing fancy, just information I wished I'd had when I was first diagnosed. My daughter-in-law, always supportive, suggested I start a blog to reach more people. At first, I laughed off the idea, a 68-year-old blogger. But the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. If my experience could help others, didn't I have a responsibility to share it? So with her help, I launched a simple blog called Seeing Clearly Now. I shared my story, my research findings, my recipes, and the ups and downs of changing lifelong eating habits. I was honest about the challenges and the adjustments, but also about the remarkable results. To my surprise, people responded. Comments came in from others with AMD, thanking me for giving them hope. Adult children of parents with vision problems reached out for advice. Even a few healthcare professionals contacted me, interested in the specific nutritional protocol I'd followed. What started as a personal health journey became something bigger, a community of people supporting each other, sharing information, and refusing to accept vision loss as inevitable. I'm not a doctor or a nutritionist. I'm just a grandmother who didn't want to lose her ability to see her grandchildren grow up. But sometimes the most powerful advocate for your health is you, armed with good information and the determination to use it. It's been 3 years since my diagnosis now. 3 years of leafy greens, colorful vegetables, fatty fish, nuts, and berries. 3 years of learning, adjusting, and staying committed to nourishing my eyes. My vision isn't perfect. The damage that occurred before I changed my diet hasn't completely reversed. I still have AMD and I always will. But it hasn't progressed. Some aspects have even improved. And most importantly, I've maintained my independence. I can drive during daylight hours without anxiety. I can read books with minimal visual aids. I can recognize my grandchildren's faces in photographs and in person. I can cook, clean, and care for myself without assistance. These simple abilities, these everyday miracles, are what make life worth living. My kitchen still looks like it belongs to someone feeding a very large rabbit. My family still occasionally teases me about my rabbit food, but they can't argue with the results. And many of them have adopted aspects of my eating plan themselves, recognizing that what's good for the eyes is good for the whole body. Emma, my granddaughter who first noticed my vision problems during that coloring session, is 7 now. Last week, she brought home a science project about the eye. I picked this because of you, Grandma, she told me. I want to be an eye doctor when I grow up. Whether she becomes an ophthalmologist or not, I'm grateful I'll be able to see whatever path she chooses. And I'm grateful that my experience might inspire her interest in science and health. So that's my story, from a frightening diagnosis to a life-changing discovery about the power of nutrition for eye health. I'm sharing it not to brag or to claim I found some miracle cure, but because I believe everyone deserves to know that age-related vision loss isn't always inevitable. That there are evidence-based, natural approaches that can make a real difference. If you're struggling with macular degeneration or other vision issues, or if you're simply concerned about preserving your eyesight as you age, I encourage you to look into vision-boosting foods. Talk to your eye doctor about the connection between nutrition and eye health. Do your own research from reputable sources. Consider how you might incorporate more eye-nourishing foods into your daily meals. Remember, this isn't about a quick fix or a 30-day challenge. It's about a sustainable approach to eating that supports not just your eyes, but your entire body. It's about making choices today that your future self will thank you for. You don't have to make dramatic changes overnight. Start small, perhaps with a daily serving of leafy greens or fatty fish twice a week. Build from there as you learn what works for your taste preferences and lifestyle. And if you'd like to learn more about my specific approach, the recipes I've developed, and the research behind vision-supporting nutrition, I invite you to visit my blog or follow this channel for more videos on eye health and nutrition. Your eyes are precious. They're your window to the world, to the faces of those you love, to the beauty of nature, to the written word, to art and movies, and so much of what makes life rich and meaningful. They're worth protecting. They're worth nourishing. Thank you for listening to my story. I truly believe that with the right knowledge and the right foods, many of us can preserve our vision and our independence far longer than we might have thought possible. Here's to seeing clearly at any age.